Greetings and konnichiwa, and welcome to the Onyx Tavern. This is your host, the Barkeep, bringing you podcast 61 here at the Tavern, presented by Hirotaku.com. Now, what you guys are seeing is something that's been floating around on Facebook for some time now. I don't know of its exact origins, nor do I know who the creator of it is. But as you can tell, this is advocating that Bulk and Skull should return in Dino Thunder to be the Gray and Cyan Rangers. Now, of course, this whole thing I don't think is being serious. It's just the idea that's bringing anecdotal evidence into it, being that the Gray Ranger has, you know, this skull-like thing based on his dinosaur, and the character's name is Skull, and that Cyan is fat and Bulk is fat. That's basically what this is getting at. So it's kind of funny. It's a little bit clever. You know, it's very interesting. But what I think is happening here is a symptom of something a little bit greater, and that specifically is a lot of fans every year wanting previous characters from the Mighty Morphin era to start coming back into current Power Ranger seasons as either mentor roles or ranger roles, or in some cases villain roles. Basically the idea that we want to bring all these actors back into future Power Ranger shows. And the thing is, I'm really on the fence about it. So I want to go ahead and have an intellectual conversation about it to really talk about kind of the pros and cons and why we want to go ahead and do this, and is it something that we should go ahead and pursue. Because with any franchise, you're going to have fans of certain eras who always want to kind of return to the glory days and nostalgia, but they want to go ahead and transplant it into something that's completely different, or something that should not go ahead and be there. So let's kind of backtrack a little bit here, and let's get the idea of where this came from. I'm going to go ahead and say that this whole idea about bringing characters back really picked up steam and really became prevalent among message boards around the time of Power Rangers Dino Thunder. It was basically, at that time, you know, Jason Frank came back as Tommy in Dino Thunder. And then, of course, what they tried to go ahead and do with Dino Thunder was, in a lot of ways, capitalize on Tommy's star power, if you will, to help that series, which it did to a great extent. And there are people nowadays that they love Dino Thunder simply because Tommy is back, which is fair. You know, if that's the reason you like Dino Thunder, then great. I mean, I don't particularly like Dino Thunder, and I did have issues with Tommy's inclusion. Now, let's talk about why Tommy was in there, besides really trying to bring that fan, the fans with him. Because also remember, this was a couple of years after Disney had acquired Power Rangers, so to bring Tommy actually was kind of a smart move on their part. But part of the idea was that he was also going to bring Katherine back. The original idea was to go ahead and put Katherine in the Zeltrex armor, and instead of Smitty, it was going to go ahead and be Katherine. I've heard some rumors that it was also going to go ahead and be Jason, and it's kind of back and forth, but a lot of what I've been finding is said Katherine, and the reason she ultimately did not show up in the armor is because she was pregnant at the time. I know there are a lot of actresses that still act when they're pregnant, so I don't know exactly what they expected her to do that would have precluded her from actually doing that. Maybe it was the travel issues, who knows. But in any case, what is actually interesting about this is that they were bringing Tommy and Katherine back. And if you want to believe Jason, we can throw that into the mix as well. Because the reason I'm okay with Tommy in that role in Dino Thunder, with him coming back, is that they had a plan for him for a character arc. That they were going to continue a specific storyline from the Mighty Morphin Zeo era into Dino Thunder. If it was indeed Katherine, then it would have obviously been the romance that was budding between them that would eventually pay off in a season to remember, where they're married and have grandchildren. So whatever was going to go ahead and happen with Katherine obviously being the bad guy would, one, tie into the relationship with Tommy, and two, tie into her relationship of being evil and used by Rita, and Tommy's relationship of being evil and used by Rita. So we have these great character threads that we've followed with those two characters. Now, if it was indeed Jason, could have done the same thing because there's a relationship between Tommy and Jason, bromance, wherever you want to go ahead and call it, and then this time Jason being on the side of evil and Tommy having to save him, much like the way Jason saved Tommy, which of course happened in the Turbo movie, but it could have been used to greater extent here. Because remember what actually happened Down Thunder is that Tommy was trying to bring Smithy over from being Zeltrax, but his anger was too much, his hatred was too much for Tommy, and it eventually consumed him, and, you know, he died at the end. So the reason I'm okay with Tommy there is because they were going to continue unestablished story threads, but for various reasons it didn't work out. So ultimately what happened with Tommy is it really just became nostalgia, and they tried to loosely tie in the Dino Thunder stuff with Mighty Morphin, with the high school, with the Blue Ranger being the nerd, the Yellow and Pink Ranger mixed spiritually because the Yellow Ranger likes music. A lot of kind of like homages to the Mighty Morphin era, but let's be honest, they were all very loosely connected since Abra Ranger had absolutely nothing to do with Zoo Ranger on a story level, so they were trying to go ahead and construct stories with them. Which brings me to Dino Charge, because this is where things are getting a little bit more complicated. Shortly after the Dino Charge announcement was made, I was hearing lots of things on message boards about, oh, we should bring back this character, we need to bring these characters back. Heck, Raptor and I were guilty about David Yost coming back in the mentor role ourselves. And really after thinking about that and seeing this is what kind of made me reevaluate that statement. Now, there are people out there that says nobody's ever going to come back and we need to go ahead and move on. And I do think that's a little bit harsh in some instances. Because here's the thing. People want to tie Dino Charge into Mighty Morphin. There is no real connection between Dino Charge and Mighty Morphin. Granted, we have the crossover, the Dinosaur War movie coming out, but that's just basing off the fact that they're all based on dinosaurs. And the fact that Dino Charge and Mighty Morphin have a dinosaur motif going on does not make Dino Charge a spiritual successor to Mighty Morphin, and I don't believe that Dino Charge should be trying to go back and capture whatever Mighty Morphin had. Now, the writers are going to come up with their own thing, but as fans, I think we need to move away from the idea that we want to see all of our original characters back in the context that everybody's trying to go ahead and say. Let me go ahead and bring up just an example off the top of my head. So we have the 5 Rangers coming back, basically. And everybody's, you know, like, oh, we got the Red Ranger and the Blue Ranger and the Green Ranger and all that stuff. Well, the Silver Ranger should be Billy. Billy should go ahead and be the mentor. And then somebody's like, no, Billy should go ahead and be the Violet Ranger. And then Cestria could be the purple, you know, the other Violet Ranger that succeeds him because she was so in one episode and her color scheme was purple and all that. It's all these ideas of tying back in somehow to Mighty Morphin artificially to put these characters in there. Because my question would be is, if Billy, and we're just going to use him as the example here, came back as either the Violet or the Silver, Gold Ranger, whatever, in Dino Charge, what do you expect to get out of his character? Because one, he's been so far gone from the series, and he was left in a very ambiguous place in the final episode, Rangers of Two Worlds. What would you do with the character exactly? And would you work with the character to where you are advancing him and not the story? Because again, let's be honest about Tommy. We didn't advance Tommy's character. Yeah, we gave him a degree in paleontology, but Tommy is no different at the end of Dino Thunder than he was in Forever Red, than he was in Passing the Torch. He is pretty much the same character. Older, seasoned, yes, more in control of himself, But what did we actually learn about Tommy as a character in Dino Thunder? And don't bring up fighting spirit. I could have told you that before that episode aired. What actually changed about Tommy? Did he have a change in outlook on his life? Did he have a change in outlook on the world in general, on Power Rangers, on the villains that he fight? Did his confrontation with Smitty actually resolve itself? What did he learn from that? Tommy is a static character from passing the torch up until the last episode of Dino Thunder. Nothing about him changed other than his paleontology degree. He's the same character before and after, okay? I know that's going to go ahead and upset some people, but, you know, he did more changing from Green with Evil to White Light. He became two different Tommies, basically. But in Dino Thunder, he is still the same Tommy. So when we bring in the hypothetical situation of Billy into Dino Charge, are they actually going to change his character any and make him learn anything? Likely not, given the track record of Power Rangers thus far. Because I can see them bringing him in as an older character, bringing David Yost in and whatnot, serving the Torin role, serving the Doctor role, anything like that, getting the powers, and then teaching them lessons, whatever. But I wouldn't see him actually learn anything. Because even look at Torin himself, and as I argue the rest of the Key Rangers, they didn't really learn anything. The only person I would argue that actually learned something about herself was Yayoi, and that was to have confidence, to believe in herself, and the courage to do what it took to help out the other Rangers. But nobody else really learned anything. And we go ahead and bring Billy in. We're going to have likely 10, 11 Rangers, you know, just based on the KU footage. Are we actually going to devote that time to an older character when we have 5 other characters to develop in less than 40 episodes? Even if we, you know, maybe you can do it in 50, 60 episodes like you did with Mighty Morphin, but you really can't go ahead and do that within the allotted time, especially when you got 5 core Rangers to focus on, a pantheon of villains to focus on, and then 5 other Rangers you're going to eventually bring in just because you want to go ahead and sell toys. So bringing in Billy would not make sense from that standpoint, to create a new series with new characters and transplanting somebody from the original series into that situation. Now, where it would work is if Dino Charge was a reunion series in the sense that all the characters that are coming back are those original characters. That we get Jason, Zach, Kimberly, Billy, Tommy. I don't know what to do about Trini exactly, but I've already given my theories on that. Bring back those original characters and make them the new Power Rangers. Don't deal with new characters, bring back the original characters. And along with that, bring back the original conflicts and character threads and issues that they last dealt with and build upon them. Because here's the thing. If you bring back Kimberly, and she is still the same girl that we saw at the end of Turbo, a Power Rangers movie, then what was the point of bringing her back in the first place? You need to do something different with this character, but also continue from where you left off. And bringing any of these characters in by themselves surrounded by new characters is only going to benefit the new characters and not them. So I think in order to get good character development and to justify these characters coming back, you have to do something with them and their stories. It can't be Connor, Kieran, Ethan's story with Tommy helping them along. No, it needs to be Billy, Zach, and Jason's story with each of them helping each of themselves along. Now, am I advocating that Dino Thunder should do this? Maybe. I'm not quite sure because, one, we're still trying to get through Super Mega Force and its idiocy, but we also need to go ahead and figure out what kind of story we want to go ahead and tell. If you want to tell a story about new characters and new adventures, then don't bring any of the originals back. You still need to make reference to continuity, obviously, since this is a 21-year-old continuity we're talking about. But shoehorning an original character into the series is not going to go ahead and help your cause. Now, granted, you can have the Once-a Rangers and the Forever Reds. You can have those where you bring back the original characters to help the new Rangers. That's what Super Mega Force is obviously going to be. Look at the episode Sigh of the, I think it's Sigh of the Tiger that's coming up, where Casey helps Gia. Well, the point of that is that first of all, it's an anniversary series, so the rules are going to be a little bit different. And this is a character who is essentially going to be a guest character to help our team learn something about themselves. But if Casey was a primary character in Super Mega Force, then we have to enact some sort of change within him. But because he has a guest spot, he's not going to learn anything. Look at all the cameos that they pretty much did from Gokaiger with previous Rangers. They learned very little, if anything, about themselves. They're pretty much the same characters that were held over from the last series or the last episodes that they went ahead and appeared in. So what I'm basically getting at, I know I'm a little bit all over the place, and that's how I get when I'm usually passionate about such things, is that I don't think it's worthwhile conversation for us to sit here and talk about, oh, would Johnny Young Bosch come back? Would Steve Cardenas come back? If we gave Amy Jo Johnson enough money, would she want to go ahead and come back? Because I think that's going to go ahead and be futile given the direction that the series is going right now. With the current writing staff and the production staff, what they're trying to go ahead and do, I don't think bringing back older characters for reoccurring roles or full cast member roles is going to be a wise decision. If they were to go ahead and reverse their policies, if they were to change things in their storytelling, bring in better writers, change the direction, stop trying to sell toys and actually tell stories, then yes, that I would say go ahead and do that. But again, let's look at it this way. It would be like if you okay. Deep Space Nine is probably my favorite Star Trek series. Now, they brought in Worf for a ratings boost because Deep Space Nine was doing bad at the time. But they didn't bring in Worf and make him the same character that he was. They evolved his character. They gave him this relationship with Martok. They dissolved his relationship with Gowron, made him a pariah. This tension between him and Kern. They had him marry Jadzia and then wrestle with being a married man, bringing Alexander back and being that father who was basically never there, and then go through Jadzia's death in the morning, trying to connect with this new Ezri character, and still walking that line between the Federation and the Klingon Empire. I would argue that I enjoyed Worf in Deep Space Nine far more than I did in The Next Generation, because as SF Debris would tell you, they pretty much made him the dumbest character there. And that's a fair assertion. But when they brought Worf in, it wasn't to make any of the other characters other than Dax better. And actually, that was never planned. That was just something that happened along the way. But if you brought Worf in and he was still the same Worf from, say, Season 1, well, then what was the point of bringing him in? That's not going to go ahead and help anything. Your characters have to change, grow, and evolve. Now, there are characters that can stay the same for a reasonable amount of time, but would act differently from the first appearance that you have them to the last appearance that you have them. And I argue just about every Star Trek character is like that. Even Spock, to a degree, is very different from the first episode we see him in, which I believe is Where No Man Goes Before. Yes, I know of the cage and all that, but let's not get into that debate. Up into Star Trek Into Darkness, his last appearance, basically. He is a different Spock every time. He is never the same Spock, basically. But let's get back from Star Trek in the Power Rangers. I'm just hoping that enlightens everybody as to what I'm trying to get at with these characters. again, I don't think we need to be having discussions about, oh, could we pay David Yost enough to forget about the production staff issues that he had, or could we talk Austin St. John out of retirement or anything like that. I say you should only do it if it is a true reunited cast. If you're going to bring the characters back, give them new powers, a new situation, but still make it about them. Not them with a bunch of new people, just them with themselves learning new things. And, you know, granted, they'll probably bring a past ranger back in the future as a supporting role or another ranger. I mean, again, Tommy set the precedent. We may see that again in the next 20 years of Power Rangers. You know, who knows? But the fact remains is, I just don't like these conversations that everybody is having that we need to go, we have to bring them back because we got to have that link to Mighty Morphin. No, the link to Mighty Morphin is building off of what they've already done in the world that they have left for the Dino Charge team to be in. It's not bringing Amy Jo Johnson back, making her the Gold Ranger or anything, and saying, oh, I used to be a Power Ranger, now I'm a Pterodactyl Ranger again. Yay, Pterodactyl, Pterodactyl. There's a connection there. No, that's not how you do it. And as for... I'll leave you guys with this comment because I think I've talked long enough, but I like to think I made my point. As far as Bulk and Skull being cyan and gray, you know what? I don't think they should do it because what they did with Bulk coming back in Samurai was idiotic because they didn't bring Skull back. They didn't advance Bulk's character. They didn't change him or anything. He's still the same old Bulk. Actually quite dumber when I think about it. And I don't see any benefit of making them Power Rangers. Yes, I know all the things Linkara has said. I agree with the things Linkara has said about Bulk and Skull. But I don't think making them Power Rangers is a good move at this time unless you... I'm not going to say fundamentally change the characters, but evolve the characters. Make them move beyond their bumbling ineptitudes to more serious, more experienced people. That would be the way to do that. But as is right now, I think what's probably going to happen is that Dino Charge is going to be a new series. Will they try to draw connections to Mighty Morphin? Maybe. Are they going to bring back previous actors? Most likely not. But I'm still excited to go ahead and see it. I just want everybody to, you know, calm down with this discussion of who's coming back and all that. I mean, again, if it's done right, let's do it. If it continues the way it is, I would definitely go ahead and avoid it. But I want to thank you guys for listening to me. I'd like to know what everybody's opinion is on this. I don't know if it's very polarizing to a lot of people. It's not really even that annoying to me. It's just that I think we have other concerns we need to be worried about other than, are we going to bring David Yost back for another season? And I really hope we can address some of the bigger issues that Power Rangers has as a franchise before we can move on to any type of discussion like that. But I want to thank you all for listening. You guys have a good evening, and the tavern is now closed.